let's go ahead and get started. And if people hop on, during, then that's great. So welcome to the first breakout session of the first day of the Better Business Summit 2021. We're glad that you could be here and attend and are kind of taking this step to just help further your education and in your business and helping to grow in areas that you may not feel totally comfortable with or just want to see what's happening and what's changing. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's that things are ever changing. So this session is on social media advertising, platform trends, usage metrics, safety, responsibility, and a look ahead. As many of you can imagine, and I'm sure many of you are following this trend, but 2021 continues to see growth in social media usage and engagement. The amount of time adult users spend on social network platforms, which grew by 13 minutes in 2020, will remain higher than before the pandemic at 1 hour and 35 minutes per day. And I know for many that, that's even more. So in this session, they'll dive into predictions and forecasts specific to social media, particularly centered around brand safety, social responsibility, privacy concerns, as well as platform trends and usage metrics. Sponsoring this session, as you can see on this slide here, we have Hartford Current Media Group, and our presenters are actually from Hartford Current Media Group. And actually, Hartford Current is our longest term accredited business here in Connecticut, accredited since 1928. The Hartford Current Media Group is the sales and marketing division of the iconic Hartford Current publishing brand. The media group is committed to working with advertising partners to bring their vast market knowledge that they have accumulated over 250 years while ingrained in the fabric of Hartford. They're committed to innovating in the digital space so that it can continue to deliver trusted journalism to loyal readers and allow advertisers to align with their content in a way that is welcomed by their audience. And now to introduce today's presenters. First, we have Michael. Michael is a digital strategist with Hartford Current. He graduated from Boston University with a degree in hospitality. He swiftly shifted gears to pursue his passion for digital media and enhance his desire to make his dent in the ever-changing digital universe. With several years of SEO, SEM, and social media marketing experience, he brings an omni-channel digital strategy with each and every custom-built proposal. Leveraging data and consumer insights allows each tactic to engage the core target audience without any wasted impressions. When he's not busy brainstorming new strategies for his clients, he can be found on the golf course, followed by an afternoon of playing catch with his son and helping his daughter learn how to walk, which I think she's probably walking now, huh, Michael? And second, we have
she is.
Yes, she is.
Yes, she is now.
And second, we have Bob. He is a director of research and category insights with Tribune Publishing Company. Bob is a marketing professional with 11 plus years of experience across diverse mediums, including digital media and services, sponsored content, broadcast, print, and direct mail. His key strengths in B2B brand storytelling, cross-media, and integration marketing strategy. He has extensive experience in publisher content marketing, including industry insights, presenting and developing cohesive content creation and distribution programs across written, visual, video, and case study with ROI development. Thank you both for joining us today. We're excited to hear what you have in this session, and I know that our attendees are going to definitely take a lot away from this session. If you have questions, please put them in the questions box, and we will be sure to check those. And at the end of the session, Matt from BVB will be moderating, and he will ask any questions, and I will be back to join you at the end. Take it away.
All right, thanks a lot, Jackie. I appreciate the introductions. I didn't realize at the time that I sent that I now have a third that I am teaching to walk. So every year there's more and more that just I need to help with. But so again, today we'll be spending the next 45 minutes or so reviewing social media and its advertising. So social media has many layers and is so much more than Facebook and Instagram. So we'll take a deep dive into the predictions and forecasts specific to all social media outlets and focus particularly on brand safety, social responsibility, privacy concerns, as well as platform trends, all using metrics. So, and then at the end of this, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. So we'll save some time for your questions. So today's discussion, we're going to focus on insider focus. So examining key usage and behavior trends on social media. Next, we'll go into the content focus, where we'll be understanding and determining the right social platforms. And most importantly, why this all matters, why this matters to you, what this means for you, and how to get started for the future. So now I'll pass this over to Bob, and he's going to get into the insight focus portion for you.
All right, fantastic. Thanks, Michael, and good to virtually engage with all of you too. Like he mentioned, and like the intro mentioned as well, we're really going to try to attack as much insight as we can around the social media space. This is a topic in an area that seems to abound in terms of metrics and things you should be doing or not doing, and best practices coming from all different angles and all different groups. But we thought the best way to really set the stage and begin was talking at a very high level around some usage trends in social media, what's happened and what will continue to happen, particularly as we start to look at what's ahead in 2022. I'll preface all of the information that we have here. Again, hope to have questions from the group as we go through. We also have more detail on some of the subjects that we include within the appendix as well, and I know that this material will be sent as a follow-up. So some of the stats and the information here, you guys will get in your hands as well after this session. So first and foremost, a lay of the land, what's happening in the social media space in terms of usage. How does it guide the few months that are remaining, the 6 weeks that are remaining in 2021, as well as help us start to think about strategies for 2022 and even further. So first and foremost, 2020, we saw this across a lot of marketing trends, if not all of them, really worked as an accelerant for trends that were already in place and starting to happen. Trends like e-commerce marketing, trends also in growth of social media. So 2020 was a huge year and an increase. We start to show some of these charts in overall social engagement. Time spent because of the pandemic saw huge surges. And what we're kind of left with now is some of those trends starting to flatline and level off. That growth that we saw in 2020 is really leveling off, but a lot of those gains will continue as well. So here are 6 overarching things that we're seeing in terms of overall usage. In 2022, monthly US social network users will grow 1.5%. Now that's less than half the pace of 2020. 2020 saw nearly a 4% increase in users. And I'll walk through this in more detail in the next slide, but 2020 was really that year where we picked up. I feel like anyone who wasn't already a social user became a social user during the pandemic. We also saw a huge increase in time spent as well. This was mentioned at the very beginning of the session too. 2020 saw 13 minutes of growth in overall on people using social platforms in a given day. And the number is huge when you think about it. The average US adult spends over an hour and a half every day across social media platforms as well. 1 hour and 34 minutes is estimated in 2022. One big growth platform was TikTok, and TikTok also saw huge growth in engagement too. So TikTok users now spend more time there than Facebook users spend on Facebook. TikTok is also that platform where we're seeing a lot of Gen Z users obviously prefer more than Facebook, but also they're starting to prefer TikTok more than Instagram and Snapchat as well. The time spent, like I mentioned, in 2022 is really going to flatten. Some other platforms, Twitter saw a really large year in 2020. Twitter is very reliant on news cycles, obviously those short snippets, obviously the political cycle too, really heated up with Twitter. That led to a 4% increase in overall usage in Twitter in 2020. That's going to start to go down as well. And then the other interesting platforms are LinkedIn and Pinterest. And those always are and continue to be very niche depending on the audience you want to reach. But again, because people had more time to spend, particularly with LinkedIn, people had time to maybe want to network, and we're seeing, these trends in the Great Resignation or people reconsidering their careers. Because of that, LinkedIn has also really seen a huge surge. So there are a lot of platforms, there are a lot to consider, and the next section will really dive through how to think about what platform is right for you. So we did show this before. I think the chart is interesting to show here too. Like I mentioned, this is looking at total social network users in the country since 2019. The big takeaway here is you can see, social usage, as we all know, is pretty much ubiquitous. So it's not about should you have a social strategy. It becomes more about what platforms are right for you, what's the engagement, what's the content that you're creating. By 2022, almost 74% of the population will have some sort of social media account. So again, if you haven't considered or thought about or really deliberately had a separate approach to how you're thinking about social media, definitely numbers like this speak to now being the time, with over nearly 3 in 4 in the population having some sort of social media account. Like we mentioned too, and this was really in that summary of the top 6 or 7 takeaways, we also saw, and you can see, the third bar is the 2020 numbers, the huge amount in increase in time spent across platforms from 2019 to the pandemic in 2020. Even Facebook, who started to see declines in time spent, saw an increase in 2020 because of the pandemic. And the numbers you see are the average minutes spent every day on each platform on average. So you can see in red, even in 2021, forecasted in 2022 as well, Facebook will still have the lion's share of time spent. So the average US consumer is spending 20 to 21 minutes on Facebook each and every day. Instagram is kind of number 2 with 11 minutes a day. And then it becomes a little bit of a long tail, with things like Snapchat, TikTok, and Twitter. But again, the big takeaway you probably can see here too is that dark gray, 2020 is really that year that I just talked about the trends, where TikTok really exploded in terms of usage. Really a blip on the radar, 1 minute, 2 minutes spent because there weren't very many people spending time on it. Now it's up to 7 minutes, a big chunk of that US consumer social media usage day as well. And you'll see a common theme throughout a lot of these trends that we talk about. And it's really the double-edged sword of Facebook too. Facebook is ubiquitous. It's the largest platform. You can see it has the largest time spent. And people, advertisers, businesses, news, companies, there's really a love-hate relationship with Facebook as well. They are so large, they control so much data, they have so much audience, and then you also hear, both positives and negatives in terms of the content and the environment. So again, particularly when you're thinking about strategy, that's one of the key things that I know we'll cover at the very end, all about safety and thinking about where the right place for your brand is as well. So growth aside, changes in the audience perspective and platforms too. Second chapter and the final chapter I'll walk through is really thinking about and understanding what the right social platforms are for you and are for your business and are right for the customers you want to reach as well. Now, again, regardless of who you work with, this is a very custom and a process that is really reliant on your audience. So we're going to give you some very broad best practices, but again, each and every different decision made really has to depend on the business that you're in, the category that you're in, and your target audience too. You'll see that different target audiences look at it and use social media in vastly different ways. So it's really important to consider that as well. What's one thing that we know? So just like we said in the previous slide, 74% of consumers are using social media advertising, and being on social platforms is a given. What this slide tries to also achieve is just being on one platform is not enough either, and you really have to have a cross-platform social strategy as well. The number at the very top is huge. 44% of social media users visit at least 3 different social sites every day. We saw that in the time spent, perspective as well. So although it's really good to become really well versed and find maybe that predominant social platform that is right for you, you also have to think about, and again, think about if you have the resources, the time, the content, knowing that the average consumer is looking at several different Facebook or social platforms every day, really thinking about what that right mix of social media is as well. Now, again, you'll see a similar theme. This is looking at, how often consumers visit different social media apps and sites. Facebook leads the charge here as well. 61% of consumers go to Facebook each and every day. Different surveys, well, some will classify YouTube as a social channel as well. But again, you kind of see a very similar in terms of time spent, in terms of daily visitation too. So 61% of people are going to Facebook every day, 40% are going to Instagram every day, 24% to Twitter every day as well. Now the chart on the right is a little bit more interesting too, where it started to ask people, what are your top three? What are the sites that you use most frequently? And again, Facebook dominates here. 75% of those surveyed said that Facebook was in their top three of sites visited most frequently. 50% of people say Facebook is their #1 social platform as well. But again, then you start to see, as you look at that long tail of different platforms, it's finding that right mix too. So Facebook may be the #1 site for people, but then look at, Instagram, 19% say that's their #1 platform as well. So I like to think of, as you're building your strategy, what is maybe the core social platform you're going to start to build your strategy around, but then how can you also use some of the content, some of the posts, some of the learnings that you have through your primary platform like Facebook? How can that translate into a separate strategy for maybe a secondary or a third platform as well, so that you're not having to reinvent the wheel with every single one? The question that begs the question then as well, as you're starting to think about different platforms, well, how do I know which social platforms are right for me? And I like this study and I like this data because it starts to look at, first we have to understand, why are people going, why are consumers of different ages going to each social platform, and what are their reasons for it? And this information, I like this survey because it really starts to encapsulate that in a very, very quick way to look at it. Now, I've ranked and I've looked at these, different life groups by age. We start with Gen Z, 16 to 23, go to the next group, millennials, those 24 to 37-year-olds, Gen X, that generation in the middle, age 38 to 56, and then you have baby boomers on the end. 57 to 64 was the age group in the study, but that really goes well beyond 64 sometimes as well. But what's interesting is, again, people were asked to give the reasons why they use social media. Now, this wasn't specific to a platform. They didn't ask this just about Facebook or about Instagram. This was just in general. Why do you use social media? Why do you spend an hour and a half on social media if you're those audiences as well? And it's really interesting depending on the generation. So Gen Z is looking at social media really as a time killer. It's entertainment. The #1 reason is to fill up spare time. The #2 reason is to find funny or entertaining content. That's what that youngest generation is looking for. Millennials, you start to see a little bit of a mix, of a hybrid of, yes, they're looking at it to fill spare time, to find funny content, but what's #1 is they're actually using social platforms to stay up to date with news and current events. And that remains the #1 reason for millennials, Gen X, and baby boomers. Now, this isn't necessarily just a commercial for, news and information platforms, coming from us, but I think regardless of who or, what group you partner with, thinking about just the content and the types of information that a consumer is looking for in social starts to paint a picture as to what type of posts or what type of content you may want to create to reach the right audience. So Gen Z, if they're looking for fun and they're turning to social media for entertainment, the last thing you want to post or share is a long form piece of content or a heavy infographic with tons of data and things to dive through and product benefits and things like that. Keep it light, keep it brief. Now, as you start to go into older generations who value, this idea of news and they're looking at it for research and to stay up to date, that's where some of your social posts, if your target audience is Gen X, is a baby boomer, you can start to have a little bit more robust content in terms of what you post as well. So think about these preferences as you start to build out and think about who your target audience is in social media too. As we're talking about, and while we're talking about these generations, this is a great companion to have too, that talks about knowing the right platform, knowing the right types of content. But this also dives into and asks, in the US, social media users, what percentage said that each social platform shows relevant ads? So the way to read this, if we just go look at Gen Z, 37% of Gen Zers said that Instagram shows them relevant ads, 34% said Twitter does, 34% YouTube, 32% Facebook. So one thing you see here is there's not a ton of difference in the percentages between the four social platforms that were asked. But what you do see is there is a difference in the assertion of, is an ad relevant on a platform? So baby boomers, their number one in terms of most relevant ads is Facebook. Gen X, millennials, Gen Z say Instagram shows me the most relevant ads too. So again, just like the previous slide, when you're thinking then about paid social placements, not only think about the content and the message that you're going to use, but then also the next question is, what's the right platform if I'm going to go in with an advertising focused message? And what we do know is that, social media, regardless of platform, is still the marketplace. Now, just like mobile advertising that, 10 years ago, people were very hesitant to purchase things on their mobile device. They might research and then go to their desktop computer to buy or call or go to the store. What happened with social over the past few years, which again is just a ubiquitous trend at this point, is that people are comfortable interacting with brands and even purchasing from brands on social media as well. The chart and the data shows, which activities have you done on social media in the past 3 months. 61% of consumers have done some sort of brand interaction in general. That includes all activities. 37% of people clicked on a social media ad. 31% discovered a new brand through social media as well. 28%, a huge number, made a purchase because of an ad that they saw on social media as well. And then 18% did a direct purchase. So that also is a separate conversation, but the whole world of even transacting or being able to sell on social media too is a really, really interesting component as well. And then the final, 17% is at the end of the chart, but a very, very important subject too is this idea of influencer marketing and using people with followings, with loyal followings on social media to promote your message or your product. That's also something, if it's done in the right way, that consumers can really find authentic. Again, if it's an authentic influencer posting something that actually makes sense with their brand, it can lead to a lot of great business benefits as well. Then the final slide that I'm going to cover, which again is a great one just to have as a reference piece, but this kind of goes through and covers the theme that I had all throughout my slides, is choosing the right social media platform in terms of the age, the target age of your group, what the purpose is as well. You have to make sure that the message that you want to promote makes sense with the platform it's on. Pinterest is very visual, so if you have a message that is very text heavy, that's not the right platform for it, and it's not going to do very well. And I think the last thing that I want to mention too is think about resources and think about the content you have as well. We mentioned TikTok and the growth that it has. We mentioned YouTube and Instagram as well. If you don't right now have, and you're ramping up the support to build videos, to have content that speaks to the audience well, don't go in too far and spread yourself too thin in terms of content, or just think that I have to get on TikTok or a certain platform because that's where the audience is. Also think about what's the right platform for the creative resources that you have as well. Because even if it's the same topic or the same subject or even the same offer or the same maybe sale or promotion that you're having, it has to be messaged differently to every single platform based on who's there and what they're looking for, which is what we covered before. So again, it goes back to picking your primary, picking a few other secondary or tertiary social platforms that are right for you, and then starting to layer in and build that strategy as well. It's a huge undertaking, but I think looking at these trends and determining your audience can be really helpful. So that covers a little bit of the space. Now I'm going to toss it back over to Michael, who will walk through some of the importance of why this matters and how you can potentially get started as a business as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Bob. That's really useful data, and we appreciate you digging into all those numbers. So now, why does it all matter, right? So, well, let's explore that a bit more in the next few slides here. Okay, so we'll just take a look now at the social media outlook for 2022, kind of the mixed signals we have here. So as we begin to move into 2022, brand safety and social responsibility will most certainly take center stage, with viral phrases such as fake news or the eye-opening Netflix documentary Social Dilemma. More and more consumers are becoming leery of what they see and read all over social platforms. The most notable example stems from the worldwide pandemic, with COVID-19. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have seen that anytime someone posts content or their theory regarding COVID-19 on social media, there is that little banner that runs right below the post that directs consumers to visit a trusted and reliable COVID-19 information site. So this is just one of the ways that social sites are trying to combat misinformation, conspiracy theories, or controversial content on their sites. And it's not only the small companies that find social media to be problematic, but major brands like REI, the North Face, Patagonia, they're starting to pull their social ads in response to some of the platform's lack of policing violent, racist, or false content. So now maybe part of your new year, new plan should be to reevaluate your social media strategy and keep in mind what we learned today and be sure you're utilizing the most proper platform for your brand's messaging in your target audience. So what now? So what should you be doing? Taking a look at what we learned thus far, again, what should be done in the upcoming months? Let's not forget that even if consumers express dissatisfaction with social media, they absolutely are still using it. And I don't think anyone foresees that changing anytime soon. Many consumers said they preferred ethical and responsible companies, but interestingly enough, said they would overlook these issues if brands offered products and or services at the right price. This is according to research by the Morning Consult. Another key thing to consider is, regardless of your engagement on social media, you should know what is being said about you on these platforms as well as review websites. This goes back to your digital footprint and how well you monitor and respond to what is being said about you on all these social platforms. Understanding that your consumer has many dimensions, so should brand safety and suitable decisions. Finding suitable ad environments will play a major role in brand perception and strong ROI. A business, as a business, right, you should consider not only the content but also the context of what platform you're using. So, for example, if you're in a home improvement business, you want to utilize a social platform where consumers are actively looking for advice or recommendations from their peers. An example would be to market your product or services on the social app Nextdoor as opposed to Snapchat. Now, I know we didn't really talk about the app Nextdoor much here, but that's just another example of a new trendy social media platform that's getting a lot of user engagement. And then don't be afraid to test new platforms either. So if you're a retail store or a restaurant and you want to get more foot traffic, think about you utilizing the social traffic app Waze and take advantage of customers who are already in the neighborhood or who drive by regularly. Don't hold yourself to one platform. Just because it's the biggest doesn't necessarily mean it's the best for your business. So, big question here is the cost of feeding that social media beast. Managing and maintaining a consistent social media presence isn't necessarily easy, and it can be very time consuming, especially when it's done in-house. Many businesses think they'll be saving money by handling their own social media, when in reality, that's not always true. As you can see here, the average staffing cost is $21,301. In comparison, down at the bottom, 25% use an agency or a third party, and they save roughly $7,500 compared to doing it in-house. Not to mention the staff gets that time back during the day for the day-to-day operations. And then also you can see here, 32% bought social ads or sponsored posts, while 30% use software for posting or advertising. Speaking of software, here are a couple basic platform solutions that can help you get the ball rolling on your social media journey. Buffer is a great tool for beginners. They offer an affordable pricing and have a great support team to help you every step of the way. They also have a free model where you can kind of leverage their services at no cost. So it's something I recommend you just try to explore when you first get out there on social sites. And then Hootsuite is another great option. You may have heard of them before. It's a bigger brand. They've been a staple in the industry for a little while now, but they offer everything from templates and guides, brand protection, ads, and much more. So feel free to check out their resource guide, and there's a link here at the bottom where you can check out what other things they can offer you. Lastly, we'll get into a quick recap here of the top takeaways. Social network user growth is returning to pre-pandemic levels. As Bob mentioned earlier, we saw a 3.7 increase in 2022, but this year's growth is less than half that rate. However, time spent, which is just as important for advertisers, will remain elevated above the levels seen before the pandemic. Consumers are still heavily engaged in social media, even as the pandemic appears to be winding down across the country. TikTok continues to come on strong. This year we'll see more Gen Z users than Instagram. Even adults are spending more time on the app than Facebook's adults users spend on Facebook. And by 2023, they'll have more users than Snapchat. This is certainly an interesting trend and something business owners should monitor closely and start thinking of ways that you can leverage video content to engage users on this platform in 2022 and as we continue to move forward. And as a result of the pandemic, social platforms like LinkedIn and Pinterest saw exponential growth. We all know the pandemic had a huge impact on our lives and certainly changed the way we went about our daily routines. This trend holds true with social media as well. The changing nature of our work drew more users to engage with LinkedIn, whether that be recruitment, job search, or to connect with business colleagues that they no longer interacted with face-to-face. So, we also spend a lot more time at home. So that kind of awoke the inner DIYer in ourselves, and we spent a lot of time on Pinterest looking for home remodeling projects or craft projects or cooking help for evening dinners with the family. Now you got to remember to be strategic and selective in these chosen platforms. I can't stress this point enough. This is a really important piece of it. We all know consumers still spend a massive amount of time on social media, and it's important as a business owner to have brand awareness on these platforms. However, do your research before and choose the social platform which best aligns with your audience and your product. Don't just consider the content, but also the context of what your consumer is doing on the social platform. And lastly, brand interactions are changing. While social media advertising is on the rise, influencer relationships had to be adjusted as aspirational content became less essential during the pandemic. Brands will need to create authentic engagements by utilizing new and established features to reach their target audience. So again, we're the Hartford Current Media Group. We thank you so much for your attending the webinar today. Hopefully you were able to learn a little something today and understand the different levels of social media and the best way to interact with them as a business. So we do have some time now. It's at 1:30, well after 1:30, to answer any questions. So please feel free to put those questions in the chat. I believe Will can send this out to you as well, so you can have it. We did put some stuff in the appendix, which has a little more data, so you can review at your leisure, and you can feel free to reach out to myself directly too if any questions pop up. But we are happy, you spent the time with us, and again, if any questions, we'll feel free to answer.
So we do have one question. For a business that's new to using social media to engage their customers, what is the easiest platform to get started on?
I guess I could take that one, sure. So since Facebook's being the biggest and they do have some in-house, Facebook has their own business suite where you kind of, as a business, you create your business page, and within that business suite, it gives you the option to kind of post relatively easy. It's free. You can create a calendar within that social suite of to easily posting things. You know, you can link it to Instagram. So right off the gate, you can kind of get the two biggest platforms relatively easy. But, you know, I think it's important, depending on what your business is, to really hone in on who that audience is and where they most engage with content. But as far as, you know, up and coming, I think it's super important to at least create a Facebook business page, which then could link to your Instagram business page. And then, you know, you can leverage those free tools by Facebook to help at least post and get your brand awareness out there. You know, it doesn't have to be advertising right away, but I think it's important as a business, especially if you have a website, to have it linked back to your social media website where you can interact with your customers. You know, Facebook gives you the opportunity for them really to, you know, interact, where you can post products or services or kind of get opinions about things like that. So I think the easiest way to start, at least, is by getting the big ones out of the way, and that's with Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, great. So far, that's the only question.
Well, I guess if there's no other questions, maybe we can give it another minute. But, you know, like I said, feel free to reach out directly to one of us. Again, we thank you for your time here today. You know, like I said, we do have that appendix at the end, so we'll send this out to everybody that registered, where you can kind of look at it a little bit further. I know there's a lot of numbers and data to kind of analyze, but, you know, we appreciate your time, and we'll hold out for another minute for questions. But thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us and bringing this presentation to us. I think this is definitely something that every business owner can take away and implement in their business. I think everybody, you know, recognizes they need that social presence, and I think a lot of the metrics and information you provided today are super useful, and they'll be able to bring them home and implement. So thank you very much, both Bob and Michael, and thank you to everybody who attended and took the time to, you know, learn a little bit, learn something new today. And we will be sending this out to everybody who attended. We will send the slide deck, as Michael alluded to, and there are some additional pieces of information that you will receive with that as well. And this recording will be posted on BBB Serving Connecticut's YouTube channel, and we will send the recording out as well. Our next session was actually slated to start at 2 o'clock today, but if you had joined at our very first session, unfortunately, the presenter for our last session today had a family emergency out of state very late last evening and won't be able to hold the session this afternoon, but he will be providing us with the slide deck and the materials, and we can send that out to you as soon as we receive them. And then we are postponing the Great Resignation session that was slated for 2 o'clock to a date very soon. So stay tuned for that in your email. Thank you again, guys, for coming today, and we appreciate your time and Hartford Current as a sponsor, and we hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.